I would like to present Christine Davenport. She is a soon-to-be retired radiation oncology nurse who is raising her 18-year-old son, Adam, after losing her son, Jason, to a fentanyl overdose 9 years ago. Thank you, Christine. You may begin.
Good evening. I am here to tell you a story. Like most true stories, it is messy. It has parts that make me smile and others that bring me to tears. But it is my story and that of my family and my beloved child, Jason. I also bring in a little bit of poetry because my son, Jason, was a poet. First, I will tell you a bit about myself. I grew up in Lancaster, New York, a suburb of Buffalo, known mostly for chicken wings, the Buffalo Bills football team, and snow. The second of 5 little girls, I am the firstborn of identical twins. My parents scrimped and saved to send the 5 of us to 12 years of Catholic school. We attended Mass weekly, observed holy days, and were guided by our father, who sank to his knees in prayer by his bed twice daily until he died of a stroke at the age of 96. We were inspired by our mother, who, converting to Catholicism before her marriage, went on to become a Catholic school teacher for over 40 years. I can sum up the influence of my parents on the lives of their 5 daughters in the following poem. It was written by me. I am going home for Christmas. Home is the place where I grew up, not the place I have lived the longest. Home is a tiny ranch house on a 4-lane highway in a town where there is always the threat of snow. There are white curtains on the windows, which my mom likes to keep closed and my dad likes to keep open, so as to see whatever is passing by on that 4-lane highway. They often bicker about it and all the little pieces that make up their lives. Dad is a Yankee fan and Mom champions the Mets. Dad is a homebody and Mom is a social butterfly. She goes, he worries, they bicker. On the days they fill the pillbox, my dad is focused, my mom gets distracted, and they bicker. Their bickering used to bother me, but it doesn't anymore. You see, that tiny ranch belongs to someone else now, and my mom and dad reside under a stone marker in the cemetery up that 4-lane highway. I do remember the bickering, but it is with fondness, because above and below and around it was the love. The white curtains still flutter, and I am going home for Christmas in my mind. The love. That is what I want you to remember, because sometimes things work out and sometimes they do not. More on that later. Despite being typical kids with the usual squabbles, we were guided always by the golden rule and loved each other and our parents deeply. After high school, I went to, you guessed it, a Catholic college, Niagara University, to study for my nursing degree. And like many college students, I slipped away from the practice of my faith. Although I married in the Catholic Church, I remained a non-practicing Catholic. Today, I close my eyes and travel backwards in time, remembering. Newly married, it was summertime and I was miserable. Unknown to me, new life was nestled deep within, changing my world forever. 7 months later, on March 29, 1974, my firstborn son slipped into the world, quietly announcing his presence and capturing my heart forever. At that crossroads in my life, I pondered deeply and made a conscious decision to resume the practice of my Catholic faith. I could either do it or not do it, the Holy Spirit whispered, and I chose to do it. I would like to digress for a moment and tell you that my child was a poet. If this seems to break my narrative, it speaks to my premise that stories are messy. Actually, I have written and rewritten this story several times over, and in a previous version, the progression made sense. But here it exists just because I wanted to. My son was a poet, at least in his early years, before drugs and alcohol robbed him of the ability to put thoughts into words and the will to do so. Much of his poetry was dark and laced with images of the storm that was engulfing him. But one poem stood out, and I will share it with you. Why am I here today with so many innocents dying? Where was my self-respect when my friends couldn't help but kept trying? Who did I think I was as I laughed while my family was crying? How could I overlook that there's always an end to the flying? I sit and comprehend my life in every single way. There's everything to live for, but sometimes it's hard to stay. I see the light in someone's eyes and I begin to hope. A smile unexpected makes it easier to cope. For once in years, I see the beauty in a trusted friend. My life is now a ballad that I never want to end. My beloved son, his words speak to me not only of pain and heartbreak, but also of the bright light that he was and the magnitude of his loss. I know to know him, I will take you back to what I call the years before. Spring 1974. There was joy as I traveled the roads to motherhood, watching that tiny newborn grow strong and sturdy. We presented him to God and promised to teach him about Jesus. First words and first steps celebrated, he grew into big brotherhood with the noisy arrival of his mate, 2 weeks early, and a presence not to be denied. How he loved that brother as they played side by side, cars and trucks, blocks and books, and blanketed hideaways. How I laughed to see them covered in glorious mud as they played in the driveway. Sunday Mass, little boys' hands clasped in prayer, first days at school, running up the path side by side to the bus and back again, as the years passed, full of noise and wrestling, poking and prodding as boys will do. Projects and papers, and proudly they grew, one loud and not to be denied, the other a quieter presence in our world. We celebrated their first communions with both sets of grandparents in attendance. How they both were loved, yet somehow as adolescence drew nigh, our quiet child slipped away into a world where we could not follow. Cigarettes, then alcohol, and finally drugs his companions, he struggled to write his poetry until even that was silenced. He was in 3 major rehabs before he turned 18, earned his GED, tutored by the head of Sylvan Learning, who declared him the most gifted writer she had ever encountered. But that was a brief respite before his disease took over and he slipped beyond our reach. Rehabs and halfway houses became shelter. He fled to the streets of Boston, scrapes with the law, and stays in treatment lockups became the norm. He often sobered up in jail, but eventually he slept on the streets, stumbling in and out of our lives and struggling against the depression that blanketed his days. And I prayed. The Jesus we had introduced our little boy to so many years before, and his blessed mother, now my refuge in the midst of my worry. We watched helpless and grieving until he connected with the girl, their relationship adding to our worry. Time passed, their relationship volatile, until she revealed to him that she was pregnant, and he announced that he was to be a father. Somehow, I blocked the thought of the child to come. Some months later, my son called to say that his girlfriend was in labor. She had no one, and would I come to be with her? I watched as their son was born, and I fell head over heels in love once again. Newborn babe and parents living in a motel room, we offered them shelter while they recovered in exchange for their promise of sobriety. And God was good. Our boy held on to sobriety for 3 years, proudly driving a trash truck and parenting that child well. Together, we consecrated the little one to God and reveled in him as he grew. Nearly 3 years passed. When the inevitable relapse occurred, we grieved as our world blew up along with our hopes for our son. We took custody of his nearly 3-year-old son and transitioned to the role of grandparent parents, working day by day as the little guy adjusted to daycare at the YMCA, snuggling him to sleep each night and riding the waves as we watched our son from afar. He drifted further into addiction, 1 year of sobriety alternating with overdose, landing him on a vent in Boston, begging him to enter treatment, only to see him repel all efforts to reason. The pull of the drug stronger than our pleading. He settled with a girl in a room in Hyannis, and they stumbled along for 2 years, until one day there came the call that we had dreaded. May 18th, 2016. Fentanyl and alcohol, our sweet child gone, and yet we had the gift of his child to raise. Jason was 42 years old and gone too soon. Several days passed, and I found myself at the podium in a hushed church, delivering my little boy's eulogy. Good morning. I woke up this morning wondering, how do you bury your son? I look out at your faces, all of whom are not only here to support us, but whom at one time or another have stood with us and listened as we described our hopes and fears for Jason. We were never shy about talking about his struggles. We truly found through the years that sharing his story inevitably helped to lighten our burden. Has never been more evident than what we've experienced in the past few days. We are enduring great sorrow, but stronger than that is the blanket of love that each and every one of you have wrapped around us. We will be eternally grateful. In the words of his brother Jamie, we all hoped that Jason would someday get the help he needed, and that then he would truly live instead of just surviving. For 25 years, he battled with the depression, anxiety, and addiction that relentlessly attacked him from all sides. He would try so many times, managing to string together some clean time, but nothing ever worked long term. No combination of medications or programs or counseling. Jason was never quite comfortable in his own skin. Eventually, he would step back into the darkness. As the years wore on, the damage amassed, and it became harder for him to think clearly, to make the right choices. He seemed less equipped for the war he needed so desperately to win. And as Jamie so eloquently stated, perhaps fate or God intervened and decided that he had finally had enough pain for a lifetime. And so this is for you, my son. Son of mine, beloved child, long ago I held you in my arms. In those early days, our world was bright with joy and hope. You grew quiet and gentle. Then your brother came along, his colors so vibrant we often turned to you to be the steady one. I think you got lost in the shadows, and looking for that brightness, you lost your way. We stood by as the years passed, your slide farther and faster than our fragile hopes could cradle. Beloved child, always we loved you, despite the gathering storm. We stood by helplessly as you slipped beyond our hope of reaching you with word or yet example. Your pain was our pain. We knew your road to peace had landmines dark and deep, and so we willed you courage for your journey. We waited on the shore, our love a compass, our hearts aching with the love and joy we held in trust for you. Beloved child, you stumbled, yet you gifted us with treasure far more precious than you could ever know. Your son you entrusted to our care. You never faltered in your faith that we would give Adam that which you could not give, a stable home and love to last a lifetime. We see you in him. He holds the best of you within his being. Our circle pulls tight to keep him safe and warm, and he will know all the love you held for him. So now I stand with those who love us and loved you, wherever you are. We know the peace that once eluded you is now yours. Son of mine, beloved child, dwell with joy in that room my God has prepared for you. You are home, my precious son. The day after we laid our Jason to rest, I had said goodbye to his visiting family and was lying down, thinking about the past several days and the loss of my firstborn son. Closing my eyes and trying to envision him, I asked him to let me know if he was all right. His dad came into the house and called to me, asking if I remembered the lilac bush we had that had never bloomed. Well, he said, it has finally bloomed. And sure enough, it had one beautiful lilac amid the green of its leaves. That tree has never bloomed again. In the years since, we have tried to make sense of our Jason's life and death. Our family was profiled in a local newspaper series entitled Lost to Addiction. I was comforted by the gentleness with which they shared our story. That same newspaper later ran an article describing the support given Jason's 9-year-old son Adam by his social worker and teachers at his elementary school following the trauma of his father's death. Everywhere we were supported by good friends and coworkers, most of whom had shared not only his death but his life with us. We have learned that talking about him, gathering memories of our Jason from those who knew him, and keeping nearby photos of him alone or with his son and with his brother give us ongoing comfort. After my Jason died, life went on. We had his son Adam to raise, which was a uniquely challenging reality for two gently aging grandparents. I had my career as a full-time radiation oncology nurse, which made the days, months, and years fly by. Holidays were spent with our son Jamie, his wife Melissa, and their 3 young boys. I continued practicing my faith, but looking back, I recognized that my practice was on autopilot. I mourned my son quietly, keeping my memories wrapped up in my heart, occasionally dusting them off for a social media post on his birthday or on the day of his death, or reflecting on his absence from otherwise happy family gatherings. In 2021, I retired from full-time nursing, working in an occasional day to fill in when needed and to supplement our income. Thinking back on what had happened in the life and death of our son, Jason, and knowing the responsibility of safely raising his son, Adam, I embarked on a deep dive into the principles of good parenting. Reading articles and books, attending webinars and seminars online, I uncovered the principles and practices of raising kind, happy, resilient young people and helping them to avoid the fate that befell our son. I became involved in a local program called Calmer Choice, a nonprofit organization which provided prevention-based emotional and behavioral well-being programming at the elementary school level on Cape Cod. Its evidence-based curriculum was studied by MIT, Tufts, Yale, and Harvard, and was taught in classrooms across Cape Cod and beyond. Sadly, recently Calmer Choice had to close its doors due to the difficulties securing resources in the face of narrowing funding pathways and the additional heightened uncertainty in the public education space, as well as other factors. However, its emphasis on mindfulness still resonates with me. What I have learned since my Jason's death is that empathy, listening, and a slowing down of conflict escalation with collaborative problem solving are vital elements of successful parenting. The importance of spending alone time focused on each child is also vital, both for each child and for ourselves as parents. When most people set about parenting, they are young and inexperienced. They are about to set off on the most important job they will ever do. Are the product of their own upbringing, often with the most rudimentary understanding of their own personalities and behavioral patterns. They are forging an exchange of those characteristics with each other as they combine their lives once married. When a child arrives, they have before them the daunting task of raising that child and its possible siblings, hoping that their offspring will not only survive, but thrive. Their actions and reactions will profoundly shape their own future, as well as that of their children. What I have learned since then can be captured in the magic of Calmer Choice, which teaches children from an early age and workings of their brains the ability and practice of managing their emotions through breathing techniques and the value of mindfulness in our chaotic, challenging world. There has been much recently written about childhood and adolescent brain development in the framework and practice of effective communication. And so in raising Jason's son, my biggest fear was the danger of drug and alcohol addiction. In my search for answers, I discovered a book written by author Jessica Lahey called Addiction Inoculation. A recovering alcoholic born into a family of alcoholism and drug abuse. She is a teacher in substance abuse programs for teens. She was determined to inoculate her two adolescent sons against their most dangerous inheritance. I learned about the workings of the teenage brain and the necessity to find ways to prevent your children from exposure to alcohol and drugs until they reach their early 20s, when their brains are less likely to develop substance use disorder. That includes developing solid relationship of trust with them and frequently and openly discussing the dangers of alcohol and drug use. Statistically, children in that kind of open environment are far less likely to develop drug abuse disorder. When I realized that the trajectory of my Jason's addiction and eventual death may have been inevitable, I firmly believed that he would have stood a much greater chance had I been educated and skilled in the practice of mindfulness, collaborative problem solving, and effective communication. Sometimes love is enough, but you just might need more. That is not an indictment of my husband and myself, but a statement of fact for future parents. One of my post-retirement goals is to write a book describing our experiences raising our two boys and developing a simple how-to manual of the effective and successful parenting techniques that I have found in countless books and wish I had known about and practiced when my boys were little. Busy parents need and deserve such a blueprint, and the knowledge and courage to fold what they learn into their lives as they embark on the joyous and yet complicated role of parenthood. I wish I could say that I was able to incorporate my learning into the raising of my grandchild. My attention deficit challenges me constantly. I have difficulty translating what I read about into action. Despite these drawbacks, my Adam is now 18 years old, a remarkable, kind, thoughtful young man with a strong work ethic. I attribute much of this to the calm and steadying influence of his grandfather. He has come to successfully manage his anxiety and ADHD through self-discipline, structuring his free time, physical activity, and meditation. And thanks to a few ideas from Jessica Lahey's work, Adam so far remains drug and alcohol free. Meanwhile, my life continues to transform. Since my semi-retirement, my Catholic faith has grown exponentially. I attend daily Mass unless I am working and spend 1 to 3 hours as often as I can in adoration at a most beautiful stone adoration chapel set in the woods in a neighboring parish, where I have an ever-lengthening list of prayers for people in my life. I love to say my rosaries in conjunction with the rosary meditations of Mother Teresa. 6 weeks ago, I attended Cursillo number 396 at the Holy Cross Retreat House in Easton, Mass., which was a transformational experience, prompting my complete retirement from nursing so that I can be about my Jesus' business. 3 years ago, I discovered the Emmaus Ministry. I have attended 3 one-day retreats in Carver, Mass. There I found myself reconnecting with my son, spending time with him and finding answers to questions that had simmered in the years since his loss. I finally heard God and paid attention to his presence in my life. In the presence of the compassionate team leading the retreats and connecting with other parents who share my loss, the day is a holy one and is most comforting. We spend time with our children, talk about where they are and how present they are to us in our lives. We even imagine our children gathered together in heaven, smiling down on us and saying, "That's my mom," or "That's my dad." We eat and drink, sing and pray together, and again gain strength from each other and our team members. We light candles, symbolizing the presence of our children, and they burn throughout our day and are sent home with us. I light my candles at family gatherings and anytime I want to revel in the reality of my Jason. Sometimes love is enough. This year, I coordinated my 4th Emmaus retreat with the help of my mentor, Betty Whitaker. Next spring, I plan to bring the Emmaus retreat to my own parish of St. Pius X in South Yarmouth on Cape Cod. I am honored to be able to reach out to other grieving parents and hope to help them find the comfort that I have found there. At the beginning of this witness, I started out by saying that my story is messy. Well, you are about to find out just how messy it can be. You see, when I read over what I had written, something did not sit just right. I was very nervous, and I texted Sue, our moderator, about that nervousness. She replied that she was sure that I knew what you, my listeners, needed. Pondering this, I realized what was wrong. In my witness, I had included my thoughts, long buried and denied, that somehow Jason's death was a byproduct of how my husband and I had raised him. I had proceeded to dissect my boy's childhood and whatever it was that I thought had been wrong or lacking. I had forgotten one of the biggest truths that I had since learned, that God did not take our children, nor did any shortcomings, real or perceived, in their upbringing. Death took our children, and there is relief in God's world for any and all suffering that the death of our beloved children had caused us. I also realized that it didn't matter what I wore or how my hair looked or how I might have tidied up the background of our Zoom feed, things that I may have been guilty of. What mattered was that you and I have an unbreakable bond, that of having survived the worst thing that can happen to a parent, the loss of a child, and we owe it to each other to share comfort the best we can on our road to healing. Well, after a tough day at work, I arrived home at 5 p.m. determined to remove my guilty testimony from my witness. I forced myself to lie down for a half an hour, tough on an ADHD girl, but strictly adhered to this afternoon, and invited the Holy Spirit to help me find and bring forth what you all need. And so lie down I did, letting the Holy Spirit convince me to let go of any lingering responsibility I harbor about my Jason's death. That accomplished, I forced myself, peeking at the clock from time to time, to let the Holy Spirit flood me with ideas, and this is what came to me. Settled at my Mac, I found and excised the offending passages, but oh, now my witness may be too short. Well, it might not be. Anyway, the Holy Spirit led me to realize that what you need to hold on to is comfort. And so I gathered some of the written word, not my own, that has comforted me and continues to do so. So here goes. Don't think of them as gone away. Their journey's just begun. Life holds so many facets. This earth is only one. Just think of them as resting from the sorrow and the tears in a place of warmth and comfort where there are no days and years. Think how they must be wishing that we could know today how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of them as living in the hearts of those they touched, for nothing loved is ever lost, and they were loved so much. The last journey. A large group of people gathered on the shore to say goodbye to a man they all loved very much. The man was about to board a ship, and they would not see him again for a very, very long time. Their faces were stained with tears of sadness, and their grief was almost unbearable. As they stood on the shore, the boat slowly sailed away. The people waved and cried, "I love you, and I'll miss you," until the ship approached the horizon and finally sailed out of their sight. On another shore, another large group of people gathered to welcome a man they all loved very much. Their faces were stained with tears of happiness, and their joy and anticipation were almost unbearable. As they stood on the shore, the boat slowly sailed into sight. The people waved and cried, "I love you, and I miss you," until the ship docked and the man was greeted in a circle of love, warmth, and peace. One day we will all take the last journey, and all of the people we love so dearly in life will be on the shore, anticipating our arrival too. Oh, what a glorious reunion that will be. Perhaps love. By John Denver. Perhaps love is like a resting place, a shelter from the storm. It exists to give you comfort. It is there to keep you warm. And in those times of trouble, when you are most alone, the memory of love will bring you home. Perhaps love is like a window, perhaps an open door. It invites you to come closer. It wants to show you more. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, the memory of love will see you through. Oh, love to some is like a cloud, to some as strong as steel. For some a way of living, for some a way to feel. And some say love is holding on, and some say letting go. And some say love is everything, and some say they don't know. Perhaps love is like the ocean, full of conflict, full of change, like a fire when it's cold outside or thunder when it rains. If I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memories of love will be for you. The time I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying, I went closer, and I did not die. Surely God had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave and even among lions, "It's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief. It's all in the way you embrace it. Carry it when you cannot and would not put it down." So I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How we linger to admire, admire, admire the things of this world that are kind and also may be troubled. Roses in the wind, the sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply. Jim Carrey once said, "Grief is not just an emotion, it's an unraveling, a space where something once lived but is now gone. It carves through you, leaving a hollow ache where love once resided." Grief is love with nowhere to go. It crashes over you like waves, unpredictable and relentless, reminding you of what once was and what will never be again. In the beginning, it feels unbearable, like an open wound that may never heal. The silence left behind is deafening, the absence impossible to fill. But grief is not just about pain. It is proof of love's existence, a testament to the depth of what we once held dear. With time, the sharp edges of sorrow begin to soften, not because we forget, but because we learn to carry love and loss together. You do not move on from grief. You move forward with it, allowing it to shape you, deepen your understanding of love to make you more human. The love that once filled your world does not vanish, it transforms. It lingers in the echoes of laughter, in the warmth of old memories, in the quiet moments where you still reach for what is no longer there, and that's okay. Grief is not a weakness. It is not something to be hidden or ashamed of. It is sacred. It is the price we pay for love, the evidence of something beautiful that touched our souls. So allow yourself to feel it. Give yourself permission to mourn, to remember, to cry, and to heal in your own time. There is no deadline for grief, no right way to process loss. Some days will feel heavy, suffocating, impossible to bear. Other days will carry a glimmer of light, a moment of peace, a memory that makes you smile instead of weep. Some moments will bring unexpected waves of sadness, while others will remind you how lucky you were to have loved so deeply. Honor your grief. Let it be a bridge between the past and the present, between love and loss. And when the pain feels too great, remind yourself, healing does not mean forgetting. It means learning to hold on to love in a new way. It means carrying the ones we've lost within us, forever a part of who we are. And in that, they never truly leave us. Just one more. Grief. Today I sat with grief. There was no noise, no distractions, just me and the weight in my heart. I thought if I stayed silent enough, maybe grief would slip away. But it stayed beside me, patient and still. I tried to turn my back on it, hoping it would lose its way. But wherever I moved, it moved too, like a shadow I couldn't outrun. This wasn't a game. It was real, and it was heavy. I changed rooms, changed scenery, but grief was always there waiting for me with a tear-streaked face that mirrored my own sadness. I asked it why it wouldn't leave, why it clung to me so tightly, but grief never answered, because grief doesn't need to. So instead of pushing it away, I let it sit beside me. I stopped pretending I was fine. I allowed myself to feel everything, to show every crack, every broken piece. Grief didn't ask questions. It didn't rush me to heal. It just stayed patiently while I learned to breathe again. Grief ate with me, slept with me, walked with me, and slowly I understood. Even if grief someday grows quieter, the love behind it will never leave, because you are still gone, and part of me will always miss you. But sitting with grief, it's how I honor what was real. My Jason is real. Love is real. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for that heartfelt and beautiful story of you and your family and your beautiful son. I'm turning off the recording now.